I was kind of a little shocked at the beginning that I wasn't getting the line out the door, to be honest with you. And I used to talk to realtors and say, I've been here for 6 months now. Why aren't you using me? And they're like, because you didn't ask me.
Wow. It's like literally simple.
It happens all the time.
Doesn't that make you just want to like strangle yourself?
I've been there.
Yes.
Yep.
All right, welcome to another episode of the Context of Contracts podcast. I am Bryan Lovell.
And I'm John Jones.
Here with John Jones. I'm glad that you finally decided to put some work into the
intro. A lot of pressure, yes. Yeah, John Jones and Bryan Lovell and I and Fred, we're here with you.
So we want to welcome in Fred Dopman to the podcast, and we are going to chat with Fred a little bit today about in-house lending. So Fred has a unique perspective on this. In fact, I would call him an expert, not just a unique perspective, but Fred specifically works with loan originators who serve inside large real estate offices as in-house lenders. And
I'm having flashbacks.
Yeah, well, hey, you actually are
that's
a
right.
subject
I love
matter
this.
expert
Yeah.
as
You
well.
did that, huh?
Yes.
Yeah, so
Okay.
Fred, like you, has worked as a loan officer in the in-house scenario, but today Fred serves as the regional manager for strategic alliances with a large mortgage company. And he's going to add a little bit of insight to us about what is the difference between being in-house or what we would consider an outside LO. So Fred, welcome.
Thank you. It's great to be here. And I can't say I'm not a little intimidated after following Laura Lynn, but I'm going to do my best.
Oh, you'll do fine.
So Fred, talk to us a little bit about what did the days like. So you were an LO in a real estate office.
Right.
So let's kind of start there.
Okay.
But what did the days look like for you? Like, what is an average day for a loan officer who's in-house? What do they do all day?
Well, a lot, I can tell you. I'm an early bird, and I was always in the office very early. And, when I got in there, I always brewed a pot of coffee and made sure that was ready for the agents when I got in there. Then I started my day. I went through my emails, and then the agents started trickling in, and that's when things got a little hairy. It was busy, and it was fun, and I really, really enjoyed it. I loved being around a lot of people. Now, I came from a call center. I worked for another mortgage company. I was in a call center, and this was really my first experience being in a group of people, being face-to-face with agents.
Yep.
And it was really an eye-opener for me, and I really, really enjoyed it. And there's a lot of responsibility that comes with that.
Yeah.
Right?
So, question, when you were in the call center, was it refinances, purchases, or both?
I was doing probably at that point in 2009, 2010, refinances, tons of refinances.
That's a huge switch when you go over into an office and now you're responsible for deadlines.
Right.
This has to close in 30 days.
Right.
Has to close.
Has to.
So Fred, I got a couple of questions. So, and mine are going to nail down to like, what are some of the activities? So I understand like why you made the pot of coffee and why you had the open door, right? Listen, hey, it's the opportunity to get an audience with real estate agents in a pretty easy and comfortable environment versus like you.
It's like hunting in the zoo.
There you go.
I mean, they're there, and you've got access to I don't know how many agents, but I'm guessing 50 plus agents, and
right.
You know who's producing, who's not, and
right.
and you become friends. You establish relationships, friendships, and you work as a team, and try to get deals done. It's a lot of fun. I mean, I thrived in that environment. In fact, I did it for 10 years, both with Keller Williams and Century 21 when I was in the business. And why I shifted into that, I was new to Florida, had been doing it as an outside LO for about 3 years, and it's a struggle to try to build relationships when you're newer in the business and get inside of a real estate office. So I had the opportunity to be presented with that option, and I loved doing exactly that, being there. And
yeah, John, you had mentioned shooting, hunting in a zoo, which we call it shooting fish in a barrel, right?
Yeah.
So, I don't like that analogy because it's not true.
Oh, it's not easy. You have to work
not
it.
True.
1000%.
When you're in a real estate office, a lot of people, I think, when I call them when I'm recruiting, they think, oh, hey, I've got an opportunity for you, a huge real estate office, and there's 250, 300 agents there, and we want you to be the in-house. And they're like, oh my God, everyone's going to use me. And then they get in there and they're like, why aren't they lining up at my door? You know what I'm saying?
Because you're not hunting.
You're not hunting.
And that's the part of the hunting in the zoo is you've still got to cultivate and hunt and build that relationship.
Well, absolutely.
It just gives you one leg ahead of the outside person to get in relationship.
So talk to us how, Fred, like what are some of the activities that a loan officer who's in one of these opportunities, like what would they do to hunt in the zoo?
Yeah. So, I mean, it's the one-on-ones that you really need to do. You need to get belly to belly, face to face with agents. And I know in the past year it's been tough to do that, right? So, but before and now we're starting to get back into that. You really need to get in front of people and talk to them. You need to be part of the culture of the office. You need to be part of their, their happy hours or their cultural events that they're doing. You need to attend things. You need to do training. So you need to really put yourself out there and make sure that you're in front of people, you know? And, right now it's difficult to do that. So the next best thing is picking up the phone and having a conversation with somebody. Hiding behind email, hiding behind a text is not the way to do it. I mean, that's a good way to communicate certain things, but ultimately you want to really make sure that you're having that voice-to-voice, belly-to-belly conversation with somebody. Yeah. And that you mentioned activities. What are the activities? And the activities are calling people, are joining different clubs that they might have in the office. Making sure that you're going to the different events that the office might be putting on. So
training classes, right?
Yeah. So a lot of what I hear to that is you've got to find ways to add value to those agents. Like it's no different.
You can't sit in the office and wait for them to come.
And so the training is you're trying to add some value through some educational piece. And I would imagine it's things as simple as Mortgage 101, but then it probably also goes into some things that are quite a bit deeper than that, right? You had a loan officer who works with you right now who recently did one on, the top things agents can do right now to get their offer accepted in this market, right? We're in a massive seller's market right now. So it could hit all spectrums. You mentioned a little bit about getting involved in some of the clubs or things like that are going on in the office. We've seen people who have done moms groups, masterminds for moms who are in real estate or something like that, with young children and things like that. So, you're finding ways to add value and be part of what's going on there. Because I would imagine, Fred, there's probably not much success in just being hey, we're the in-house lender.
No.
The success is in we are your business partner.
Right.
I think sometimes to that degree it works against you because if you don't make the effort, they're going to send business elsewhere. It does not guarantee it. They feel that with you there,
they might actually be more adverse.
Right. They're expecting, if Fred doesn't make the effort to come down the hall and set an appointment with me, why would I just reach out to Fred?
Right.
I've got a relationship with Bryan. He's on the outside. He's always done a great job. I'm not just going to suddenly use Fred.
No.
You've got to work harder sometimes.
No. And we see it all the time. I mean, I don't think there's a single loan officer that's gotten business because they're sitting in an office in a realtor, in a real estate office. You really have to go out there and get that. You need to build the relationships. Yep. There's no doubt about it. And Bryan, we've talked about this. When I was in the Keller Williams office, I was kind of a little shocked at the beginning that I wasn't getting the line out the door, to be honest with you. And I used to talk to realtors and say, I've been here for 6 months now. Why aren't you using me? And they're like, because you didn't ask me.
Wow. It's literally simple.
It happens all the time.
Doesn't that make you just want to strangle yourself?
I've been there.
Yes.
Yep.
Well, if you'd have just asked, you bring up a good point. I remember a loan officer sharing with me who you had worked with in one of the real estate offices. In other words, they're an LO in an in-house relationship. And this real estate office also had a homeowner's insurance provider in it. Mm-hmm. And the same thing, the homeowner's insurance provider comes to the loan officer and says, how come you've never referred me one borrower for a homeowner's insurance policy?
Right.
And our loan officer was like, dude, I don't even know who you are.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Right? and they work in the same real estate office. Like, to me, that was a big aha. What I hoped, like, the LO took away, and anybody who's listening would take away, is like, the point was, if you want to earn their business, you are going to have to ask for it,
business.
you know, and provide some value to go with that.
Absolutely. And, you know, when you're looking at, when you opened, Bryan, you said that what's the difference between being an in-house and LO and an outside LO, right? I think for the most part, there isn't much of a difference. I think that being an inside LO gives you certain benefits, but you still have to do the same activities. I mean, you know, from being in the business for all the time, and we've been in Strategic Alliance for how many years? 11 years now?
Yeah.
That not a lot of agents go into the office, right? A lot of them never see the inside of the office. So how do we reach out to those people? The same way that an outside LO would have to do it, right?
Yeah.
You make the phone calls, you see if you can get the one-on-ones with them.
But I think the advantage to that too is if you're in-house, you do have a little bit more visibility. So
you do, absolutely.
When you're calling, you know, an agent, you know, instead of saying, hey, you know, it's Bryan over at VanDyk Mortgage, you could say, you know, hey, it's Bryan, we're your in-house partner at the, you know, Remax, Keller Williams, whatever it is, you know, with VanDyk Mortgage. Like, you can add a little bit of credibility to that.
It's a warm lead, warm
you know,
intro.
And, you know, I think one of the other things, like, if you do a good job and you know, you kind of become part of like that leadership team in that office. So you had mentioned that, you know, you become a resource, right? Where they're coming to you, like, especially the new agents was what you said. And I think that new agent at the beginning, like, they kind of need the loan officer's help more than the loan officer needs their help. But if you're truly looking at this as an opportunity to serve the agents and the agents of the real estate office, you're working with the real estate office leadership for helping those agents get into production and be that resource for them.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I mean, you mentioned it yesterday when we were meeting with the team lead, right? If we can get these agents into production and they can keep them on board with the office, that's a huge benefit, and that's a huge value add that we can give to them, right? And they really do appreciate that.
I mean, they'll come to you. The newer agents are coming to you just for help trying to write the contract.
Yeah.
Make sure the numbers are going to line up.
Right. And another
how do I back out EMD?
Yeah, absolutely. And another thing you said, Bryan, is that when you work with a newer agent, I know sometimes we don't want to do that because newer agents aren't in production and we think that we're wasting our time. But, you know, in reality is, you know, if they do get into production and when they do get into production, if they use you and they have a great experience, you know, you've got them for life. You've got them for life.
Yeah, because they're too new to have the confidence to try something new.
Right.
Is what happens. So, like, hey, my first lending experience went off good. My first homeowner's insurance went off good. My first home inspection went off good. You know, all of those things. Like, you're, as a new agent, like, hey, you know what? That if it went well, like, I'm not going to rock the boat and try something new. This worked, right? Whereas, like, a more seasoned agent is going to feel more comfortable giving somebody new a try.
Yeah.
Right.
You know? Yeah.
Exactly.
So, you know, Fred, I think there's a misconception out there, or maybe there isn't. You tell us, but there's an idea that if I'm an in-house loan originator, agents who are not affiliated with that office aren't going to use me.
Yeah. I was kind of thinking about that question, and you know, we have to look at who we have with us right now. So you look at Peggy, and you look at Justin, and you look at Sean. I mean, have they suffered from being in a real estate office? No, right? I think people have said to me, well, you know, if I tell somebody I'm in a Keller Williams office they're from Remax, they're not going to want to use me. I don't think that's true at all. First of all, you don't have to tell them.
I was going to say that conversation shouldn't come up.
Why would that come up in conversation?
Right.
It shouldn't, right? So I don't think, you know, that's a huge detriment. I really don't. It's just kind of, I think, an excuse maybe.
Well, I think one of the things that we have seen over the years is, you know, agent works at company A, and they meet the in-house lender at company A, and they decide to leave company A and go to company B. Like if you're an in-house LO and you did a good job,
They're going to continue to
they
support
should
you.
be continuing to work with you.
Yep.
you know?
Absolutely. Yeah, I totally agree with
You
that.
know, I think one of the other questions is, well, what about my business that's not part of that real estate office? Like, I don't want to lose that business.
I don't think there's any reason that you need to lose that business. I mean, there's no reason you need to lose that. So, when I'm talking to people that come on board, that is a question that they ask, What about all the business that I have on the outside? And I'm like, listen, we're going to be in-house, right? We're going to be the in-house lender, and certainly that needs to be a priority for us, right? Because we need to bring the value. We need to do those extra things that you might not need to do as an outside LO. However, I don't want you to lose your outside business. We want to make you successful, right? We want to make you as successful as we possibly can, and bringing that outside business with you is part of that. Certainly you're not chained to that office. You are, an LO, and we want to make sure that you're doing what you need to do to make as much money as you want to make and live the lifestyle you want to live, right? So why would I, not let you do, or excuse me, I'm sorry, but why would I want you to lose your outside business? That's not something that we want for you.
Do you, what about, is it easy to maintain the relationships that you already have?
Well, I think, I mean, if you're keeping in touch with your agents and you're constantly
servicing them
and talking to them and making sure that you're involving them, absolutely. Why wouldn't you be able to keep those relationships up?
Yeah. No, I agree with you wholeheartedly. I just think those are some of the things that we get or we hear is like, well, I'm afraid that if I go into this real estate office, I'm already
it's going to be all consuming, and you're going to want me
yeah.
to be at the desk from 9 to 5, and I'll never get to see Bryan across town and have lunch or golf, whatever I do to maintain that relationship,
Right.
and that's going to dwindle.
Right.
But that's certainly not the case. You just, one of the things I did was I would post my schedule when I was going to be in the office and when I was going to be unavailable or out of the office, but always able to be reached by cell phone. And one of the things, if you're in a real estate office and you make that mistake and don't post, everybody's going to tell you they were looking for you, and you weren't available.
So
even if they didn't have a deal for you, they walked by your office, and I'd say, well, wait a minute. You know what? You can call me at any time. I mean, I was out on an appointment with somebody else, but you can call me or text me.
Yeah.
You're like, no, I just passed your office and noticed you weren't there. Okay? But, I mean, you've got to be careful and make sure that, that everybody knows your schedule so they know when to expect you to be there.
Yeah. And we've had that conversation ongoing for years, right, Bryan? That if you're not going to be in the office, that's perfectly fine. You're not always going to have to be there. I mean, you're going to want to go to your closings. You're going to want to meet with agents that aren't affiliated with that office, right? So put a note on your door. I'm not going to be here from this time till this time or this day to this day. Here's how you can reach me. Call me at any time, and I'll get back to you within a certain amount of time.
Yeah, John, I think what I like about what you just said is there's a misconception that the door's always dark, right? Meaning that, well, the LO's never here,
Right.
you're never here, whatever. Well, the reality is like, I'm only not here on Wednesdays, right? But because the schedule hasn't been communicated clearly, that perception becomes the reality.
Yeah, I mean, it's hard because so many agents work remote. They may come to the office one day a week, literally just to get mail. So that one day, it might be Wednesday at 4 p.m., right? When they pass by, they come by, look for Fred. Fred's not there. So in their mind, Fred's never there. They're there literally 20 minutes getting mail once a week.
Yeah.
But Fred, you're never there at 4 o'clock, and I never get to say hello. And that's back to Fred's point where you've got to be intentional and make sure that you're touching them to make them know that you're available for them. Because if they pass by even 1 week and you're not there, it starts to think like you're not working at that role.
Yeah, so that goes back to communication. It goes back to calling through the roster. It goes back to calling the agents and talking to them. And so they would know when they go in on Friday at 4 o'clock that you're not going to be there.
Sure.
Constantly calling the referral partners that you have, and if you're in a real estate office, obviously through the roster, Just saying, hey, I just wanted to touch base with you. Here's my schedule. If you ever need me, if I'm not in the office, here's where you can get me. Here's my cell phone number. Here's my email address. Here, whatever it is, so that they know that you're available. So, if you're not talking to them and they walk in, they don't see you, yeah, I agree. They're going to say, Fred's never in his office. He's never here. But if you have already talked to them and have communicated with them, they're going to know.
Yep.
Yeah. I think one of the things you guys just made me both made me think about is, I think oftentimes the loan originator is one of the most visible people in the office. Right, and so
100%.
That's absolutely true.
In a lot of
100%.
cases, like,
They're there as much as the office manager.
In a lot of cases, like the owner probably isn't there every day, or if at all. You've got a sales manager or a team leader. They may be out networking. I mean, who knows what they're out doing? Like, other than like the receptionist and maybe somebody who works in accounting or whatever, the loan originator oftentimes gets automatically elevated to one of the most visible people in the office, right?
Yeah.
And what you could take advantage of is, you kind of put yourself in that place of leadership. Now you're a leadership resource in that office too.
Yep.
Right. And so it's the ability to go to the team leader and say, hey, by the way, I was talking to Billy Bob the other day, and Billy Bob ain't too happy with the way things are going on around here. I think this is an opportunity for you, or that you'd be surprised at the things that you overhear in water cooler conversations or after a meeting or something like that, because you're one of the team, right?
But even more so because you're not one of the team.
Yes.
You know what I mean? You're independent. We're independent, outside of their company. So they're more apt to reach out to you with what's working or not working.
Yeah.
Sort of back to your point.
Yeah.
Yeah, I agree with that. And that goes back to that silly thing that I said about getting in early and making a cup of coffee, making a pot of coffee. Because when I didn't do it, people noticed.
Wow.
They totally know. Hey, Fred, where's the coffee? How come you didn't make the coffee? I'm like, oh my gosh, I
Like,
forgot.
wait a minute, I'm not the designated
I
coffee
forgot
maker,
to make the coffee. But seriously, people notice those kind of things.
Absolutely.
They notice that you're not there. They notice when you're doing things. They really do. And it's really important that you are consistent.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think the other thing, one of the things that we're seeing today, more so because of COVID, right, is in the offices not being full of agents like they once were, is those social media groups become very, very important, right? So like a lot of these offices have a closed group that's just agents from that particular office that are part of it. But that's an easy way, if you're an originator part of that office too, to become visible in an environment that we're not always visible.
Absolutely.
Opportunities to post your wins, how you can be of service. I mean, but like John, to your point, maybe a post, hey, I'm going to be out of the office today, something along those lines.
Yeah.
But I just think that there's, the overwhelming thing that we're talking about is you can't just go there, show up, and wait for someone to knock on your door.
No.
You've got to engage in what's going on in that specific office. And being a good partner too is about getting with the leadership and uncovering what their needs are, so that you can try to formulate a plan to help them meet those.
Absolutely.
And as Zig Ziglar said, like, you help enough people get everything that they want in their life, you're going to get everything that you want in yours. And that's when it turns into referrals. Yeah.
The thing about being an inside loan officer is, you've got to do all the activities that an outside loan officer has to do, obviously. You've got to build your relationships. You can't sit there and wait for somebody to come to your door. But there are certain things that you have to go above and beyond with, right?
Yes.
The trainings and being involved in the social events. And there's a lot. I mean, these LOs do really have a lot of things to do. And then to your point, John, if something goes sideways, you're not going to get a phone call. You're going to knock on the door.
You've got to be available. I think that's
and
the
you're sitting there and you've got to
make.
be accountable.
If you're out there and you're getting a mortgage with a bank, they're not going to answer the phone after 5. If you're working in a real estate office, you're going to answer that phone call. I mean, and you've got to communicate. You can't hide from problems. You got to be,
you can't
hit them head on.
I mean, unless you go under your desk, you can't.
Yeah. You're not going to escape.
And from talking to a lot of LOs, our LOs don't work till 5 o'clock. You know,
Well,
they're
I
answering
don't-
the phone at 9. They're answering the phone at 10.
On the weekends, right?
Always on weekends. So, you know, they have a lot on their plate.
Yep.
They
Yeah.
really do.
I think in the long run, you know, whether you're a loan officer who, you know, is getting by closing 2 deals a month, or you're a loan officer closing 12 deals a month, I think this is a great opportunity for either segment. And
Yeah.
because to me, like, if you've reached a ceiling of achievement on your level of production where you're at right now, an opportunity like this is going to take you to the next level.
100%.
Right? It's at whatever level you're at, this opportunity
Yeah.
is going to take you to
Yeah.
the next level. And you know, again, we talk a lot about leverage in this environment too. I think that because of it, I think it is a little bit harder work to be in a real estate office. Having that leverage piece is way more important than just being an outside LO, because it's easy to get bogged down on all of the things, right, that prevent you from building relationships with those agents that are in there.
Yeah. And you know what, the other thing that I wanted to just mention is that, you know, when you're in an office, like a big office with 200 agents
I was gonna go there.
and a team leader and an OP and a productivity coach, you're around a lot of smart people. And there's so much opportunity to grow personally, professionally.
Yes.
By talking to these people and using them as a mentor and asking them questions and really getting to know the business, right? So that alone is huge. It's a huge opportunity for somebody.
So talking large office, 200 people, 300 people, at what point does it make sense to bring in even a second partner as a loan officer?
You know, I don't think it's really relying on the number of agents in the office. It's pretty much relying, I think, on the production of the loan officer.
Right.
You know, I mean, a really good loan officer who's closing, you know, 6, 7, 8 loans and needs support because they're getting business out of the market center and they're getting outside business. You know, that's somebody we want to make sure that we get somebody in there for. It could be an office of 200 agents or it could be office of 600 agents. It depends on what the production of, I think, is the.
So back to when I was originating, what is your capture rate? What are you looking for when you're in an office? What's realistic?
What are we looking for and what are we getting are two different things.
Right.
But, you know, I think that our minimum capture rate should be 15%. I mean, I know when we started it was about 30%, which, you know, is oh God, I would love to get 30%. But right now,
of the finance buy sides.
finance buy
That's
sides.
you have to, the actual at-bat, potential at-bats that you
correct.
have.
Yep.
Industry average is about 9%. I think you're doing better than that right now.
Some offices, yes.
In a lot of cases, and then some we're getting as high, you know, as 30%.
Yeah, I mean that's awesome.
Yeah, I mean, when you're looking at an office where you only have one loan officer and they've got 150 buyer side transactions a month,
That's when you need another team.
you know,
Please,
well, yeah, we can't get
Right.
30%.
right?
But that's like to
and
your
let-
question.
Yeah.
The formula isn't necessarily how many agents. Like, you know, the way Fred answered it was, well, it's going to depend on the LO, but sometimes it's going to depend on the size of the opportunity.
Yeah.
Right? Because if the opportunity is great, there's no way just one person is going to be able to do it.
Couldn't make 150 calls in a week.
No.
I mean, with everything else that you have going on, it'd be impossible to stay in touch with people.
Yeah.
It's tough.
Yeah.
Yeah. Any other questions that you got?
I do not.
Fred, anything else you want to share?
No, I think I'm okay.
All right. Are you glad this is over?
No, I had fun.
Yeah, no, you did.
I
awesome.
actually had fun. I was really nervous coming in here. Like I said, I mean, you told me Laura Lynn was nervous. I was like, how the heck can that happen?
Yeah.
I'm nervous.
So
but
give,
now, no, this
give
is
a little
cool.
plug. I mean, we are always looking for good talent that, folks that want to have this opportunity to work inside an office. And again, what Bryan said, if you're out there now, newer in the business, don't have a lot of deep, great relationships, you close in 1, 2, 3 deals a month, this is definitely a way for you to quickly double, maybe triple your business.
Absolutely. And we're always like Bryan said, we're always looking for talent. Like you said, we're always looking for talent. So, absolutely, I want to talk to as many people as I can.
Here's my thing. Fred mentioned Strategic Alliance. I've worked with him within Strategic Alliance for, I believe, 11 years. You did it for a long time as a loan originator too. I think you guys will collectively agree with me. this is an opportunity that will change your life.
Yeah.
Not can change.
Yeah.
It will change
I mean,
your
I
life.
still have I haven't originated in years, but have great friendships. I mean, that I developed back 10, 20 years ago.
I do too. You know, it changed my life.
Yeah.
I still have relationships and friendships with agents that I worked with. You know, how long has it been? 7 years ago, 8 years ago now, and I still talk to them. And you know, you never lose that.
Correct.
You know, you never lose that.
Yep. Fred, nice job. Hey, listen, anybody within earshot listening or watching, if you've got questions, regardless of affiliation, you know, I know that Fred would be willing to answer and help anybody who's got questions about what it looks like to be in an in-house scenario. We have a saying, we serve all who seek service, not just those we're in business with. I know that he echoes that sentiment. So, Fred, great job. Thanks for being with us today.
Thank you.
Thanks for tuning in to another episode of the Contacts to Contracts podcast. On behalf of John Jones, Fred Dopman, I am Bryan Lovell. And if there's anything that you need, we're always here to serve.
Thanks, Bryan.